And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. We go live to CPAC. Our great friend, syndicated talk show host Lars Larson joins us from the epicenter of conservatism where the president will speak today. Lars, good morning.
Kevin, good morning. The president is speaking in less than 2 hours. This is going to be a fantastic day at CPAC. As you know, he spoke last year. I'm anxious to hear what he has to say. And I've been having just a tremendous time. And I understand for some people, politics makes their eyes glaze over. Not for me. It controls virtually everything about our lives these days, unfortunately. And I like to see conservatives get together who can talk about making the federal and other governments less intrusive in our lives.
Certainly, Lars. Of course, it is the Super Bowl of conservatism, of politics. What about the reaction to the Parkland shootings? How has that impacted CPAC, if at all?
Oh, it's impacted it incredibly because people here are saying, listen, we understand that this is a problem. We also understand that there are ways to solve this problem. We understand that the way to solve this problem is not to repeal the Second Amendment, as literally some crazy people are suggesting. It is not to disarm law-abiding citizens, tens of millions of them across this country, who own roughly 300 million guns, and 99.99% of them will never be used in a crime, never have been used in a crime. So it does have an effect, especially when you see, I hate to say it, Kevin, because I have a lot of respect for county sheriffs. I've always said that they are they're really the lifeblood of law enforcement because they are directly elected by the people and they are directly answerable. Unlike police chiefs, God bless them too, but they are chosen by politicians. And the only way that a citizen has to affect, the way that a police chief does his job is to elect a different mayor, a different city council, that sort of thing. Other than that, they are to some extent beholden to the politicians who've chosen them. Most police chiefs serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So when you hear that Scott Israel, the sheriff of Broward County, has a deputy on his staff who was assigned to protect children, and he was armed, and he stood outside the school and did nothing more than what you or I could do. He called the police. And he was standing right there with a gun. Now, I understand none of us truly knows what we would do if there was a moment where we could save a life, but where we would risk our own by putting ourselves in harm's way. But when you sign up to be a police officer or a sheriff's deputy or an FBI agent, you've signed on for that duty. When you stand outside a school for 4 minutes while a gunman is inside murdering people, I know the man has now resigned. I guess his house is under police protection, although I don't know if that's necessary. And so it's very disappointing. And that on top of the fact that the sheriff's department itself, which Scott Israel defended the other night in the National Town Hall out of Florida, he defended their actions even though they'd apparently been to Nicholas Cruz, the killer's house, more than 30 times, perhaps as many as 39 times, and took no action. Now, I understand that the police can only act when a crime has been committed. But if they went to his house 39 times, was every single one of those times for a noise complaint? Because almost anything else you would show up to a house for, a domestic violence, a fight, an altercation, even somebody doing something as simple, Kevin, as raising his fist to his family, to his mother, who was still alive till November, and saying, I'm going to kill you or I'm going to hurt you. That is a crime in every community in America. It's called intimidation in some states and other crimes in other states. If you say, well, what good would it have done if they'd taken him into custody? You take him into custody, and that immediately sends a message to the person you've just arrested. This behavior is unacceptable. Second, you get charged. That means you show up in front of a judge. If the judge is very, very compassionate, they say, well, I'm going to let you plead guilty to a lesser charge, but I'm going to put you on probation. Well, probation, as people have been, I've never been on probation, but I know from covering it, it comes with limitations. Drinking, guns, associations with other people. So the court would have had some hold over this young man who, it seems today, we're told everybody knew was a potential danger. The school knew it, the sheriff's department knew it, the FBI knew it, and the folks who were in a position to act, both the FBI and the sheriff's department, did nothing. And now we learn that one deputy literally stood outside and waited for other police to arrive to do his job.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us from CPAC. You can get your weeknights 6 to 9 here at KIDO Talk Radio. Lars, as someone who covers guns, is a hunter, you go to the SHOT Show. In fact, I was talking to our friends from Independence Indoor Shooting. They saw you there at the SHOT Show. What does this mean for people that are good law-abiding citizens that are having these discussions? We've got the Youth March. We've got these kids that are mobilized. Offices, families, churches are really divided right now.
Well, here's what it means, and let's be honest about this, Kevin. Your gun rights are very much at risk. Not as much as if we didn't have a Republican Congress or a Republican president, but honest God, if Hillary Clinton had won, if one of the houses of Congress was under the control of the Democrat Party, they would be happy to start stripping away your rights to legally and lawfully own firearms, as I do, as you do, as other people do. And that's concerning. And the fact that it may not happen this year because we have a Republican Congress doesn't mean it won't happen in 2 years or even after this November's elections, because all it takes is a change in leadership and enough people reacting by saying, let's let emotion guide public policy. I don't think emotion should ever guide public policy. The big concern you used to hear 6-8 months ago from the left was Donald Trump is so crazy he might just push the button and nuke North Korea. Well, I think that's ridiculous. I think the president has shown himself to be a very sensible leader. I know that his style irritates a lot of people. Fact is, he's getting things done. But it would be wrong if President Trump, a man I supported, a man I endorsed, were to react emotionally and say, let's go blow something up because I'm angry. And yet, here is a country, God bless these kids, but the kids are out saying, we want to make national policy based on the raw emotions of seeing their classmates murdered. I understand those emotions, but we always advise friends, don't do something, make a big decision while you're being emotional, because you won't generally make sensible decisions. And yet we're being asked at that town hall. There were folks saying, you know, they were shouting, burn her to Dana Lash, who was there representing the NRA. And they applauded Marco Rubio, who unfortunately has shown himself to be a real rhino Republican in name only. He caved in on a number of issues and almost seemed ashamed to have taken donations from the NRA. Well, the NRA is a good, solid American group that is one of the largest groups. And the reason I say it's the largest, most of the time we say that to emphasize its power and size. Let me put it this way. 5 to 6 million Americans have chosen to voluntarily join that group because they want children murdered, which the NRA has been accused of by the left? No, because they believe that it represents an important issue in this country. Now, do Americans have a constitutional right to give voice to their opinions and to join groups who will stand up for their rights, for their, for an issue? And yes, Americans do. We have a constitutional right to that. So when 6 million Americans join a group, bigger than any other political group other than the labor unions, that's an important statement. When that group then says, these people running for office support the issues that our members believe in, and they give them money. The NRA has given Marco Rubio over $3 million over the years to support his candidacies. When somebody like that stands up and when he's asked, will you take a vow to never take another dime from the NRA? He should have said, no, I will not take that. I'm proud that I've taken money from the NRA. The NRA is a good group. And for those of you who accuse the NRA of murdering children, you're just wrong. The NRA does not murder children. The NRA, if anything, works to advocate for the safety of children, the safety of families, and the law-abiding use of firearms. So the suggestion, and you can see it, just Google NRA and murder, and you'll see the people out there who are saying that this group, simply by advocating for the constitutional rights of Americans, is complicit in the murders of these children in Parkland, Florida. And it's wrong, Kevin.
Lars Larson joining us, our great friend. He's at CPAC. Lars, as someone who has accomplished so much in journalism, in talk radio, as a father, a grandfather, you bring a great perspective to our business and to our industry. You really do. And
you're too kind.
I've just truly, you do. And as a father and a grandfather, when you watch these town hall meetings, because again, Lars, no one's ever going to outwork you. That's why we love having you on. And I said, hey, can you come on? You're like, no big deal. But as someone who values what words mean, when you hear a young child from Parkland tell a mother, Dana Loesch, that, we're going to protect your kids more than you ever will, or comparing Marco Rubio to the killer, Cruz, what goes on in your mind as a father and a grandfather when you hear these kids saying these things to parents that have a lot more life experience and have accomplished a lot more than these naive kids?
Well, here I have two reactions to that. I've always said in the 10 or 12, it might even be 14 years I've been coming to CPAC to do live broadcasts of both my shows. I've said one of the things I find invigorating is to walk in. Over half of the 10 to 12,000 people who come to this event every year are under the age of 30. And it's always, it just makes my heart sing to see young people politically engaged who go out and educate themselves on the issues. Having said that invigorates me. When I see high school kids, and I don't diminish their point of view because they're in high school, I diminish their point of view because when they've come out and said, we want something done, my first question is, what? And so far, we are now more than a week past, the murders at the school in Parkland, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. We're more than a week past, and I haven't heard one of these high schoolers who are advocating for change tell us what change they want. And I have heard some of them say things that are just blatantly foolish, statements that are just factually inaccurate, that don't make any sense, and show that you don't know the subject. And I'm not trying to be highly technical. I'm saying if somebody comes, and if I were to sound off on football, I know less about football than almost anybody else in America. I like watching the games, but I don't know much about the sport, so I don't voice an opinion on it because I don't know anything about it. When you have a critical issue like this that has the potential to threaten the civil rights of Americans, and the Second Amendment is a civil right, and then you say, but I don't know anything about the subject, and then you say, change something, and you say, we respond by saying, well, what would you like us to change? And they don't have any idea. Or they say, take all guns away, repeal the Second Amendment, go door to door and disarm every American. That's foolish talk. And if you want to be taken seriously, when I was joking to my producer today, I'm old. I mean, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be 59. I've been in radio for 43 years.
Yeah.
I used to wear a suit and a tie every day because I wanted to be taken seriously. But the clothing doesn't do everything. When you open your mouth, what comes out is going to decide whether people take you seriously or not. And I'm not taking these kids seriously until they say something sensible, and they haven't yet.
Lars, I know you've got to go. Your thoughts on the danger of the Democrats taking over the House? Are people talking about that at CPAC this year?
Well, people are talking about it, but we're also, the general consensus I've heard is, look how well things are going in America right now. Look how poorly they were going 18 months ago at the tail end of 8 torturous years. And it's not just because it was Obama, it's how it worked out. We had an economy that was bumping along the bottom. We had a leader who bragged about leading from behind and what would he call strategic patience. You know what strategic patience gave us with North Korea? And that was the phrase used by Barack Obama to describe our approach to North Korea. It allowed them to become nuclear armed. So while he was being strategically patient, the crazy man who runs North Korea was getting missiles that can reach American cities and nukes that can nuke American cities. And you think about the people in Mountain Home and other strategic locations in America who know that there's probably a Russian nuke and a Chinese nuke that's aimed at them. Imagine the threat that has come to our country because of Mr. President's strategic patience. Now all of a sudden we have a president who's engaged, who's knowledgeable, who's made some great decisions. We've virtually wiped out ISIS. I don't want to say we wiped it out because that gets the mission accomplished banner up there. But we have taken ISIS from something that the previous president said we should seek his goal was containment. It's like a team that was on the losing side of a football game. I do know this much, who says, hey, we have fewer points than they do. Let's concentrate on defense. Well, that isn't going to win the game. What we had to do was have a president who said, we're going to destroy ISIS. And here we are just over a year into this presidency, and ISIS has been so far diminished while not destroyed that we've largely accomplished that. The economy is going well. Jobs are coming back. Foxconn, which runs giant factories in China, is now building a factory in the United States. The same president, just let me remind people, Barack Obama said, those jobs are not coming back to America. Well, guess what? Donald Trump has made the conditions right. He didn't write a check from the Treasury. He said, let's make the conditions right to make America a great place to do business, and the jobs are coming back. There's so much opportunity now in America with these record low unemployment rates. In fact, the new unemployment filings came out yesterday. They've hit about a 2-decade low. That is new people walking into the unemployment office saying, I don't have a job. I need to file for unemployment. It dropped 7,000 in 1 week. And they said, holy cow, we haven't hit a number like this in almost 20 years. So when you see that kind of success, God help the Democrat who's running this fall saying, I voted against the tax cut, against putting more money in people's paychecks. I voted against I have opposed the president who's bringing prosperity back to America and who's making America stand up on the world stage and fight back against the kind of terrorists like ISIS out there. Tell me how a Democrat is going to run against that.
Lars Larson, he's always running 2 shows, one regional, one national. We so appreciate you, and I guess we'll talk to you Monday. You just never stop. Are you ever going to get any rest?
Kevin, I'll rest when I get old. And, while I'm getting old, I'll rest when I get a whole lot older. Listen, you do a great service to your community, and I really count as one of the blessings of my life, my friendship with Kevin Miller.
Well, God bless you, my friend. Safe travels, Lars.
Take care, Kevin.
All right, our great friend Lars Larson joining us. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And it was a heated day at CPAC. We'll get to that. And Donald Trump saying it's time to arm teachers. First, 627 at KIDO Talk Radio. You're home for Lars Larson right after Sean Hannity. Weeknight 6 to 9. Of course, Sean 3 to 6. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436-580-KIDO. And coming up, you'll hear from the folks at CPAC. You'll also hear, though, from Donald Trump, who lays the smackdown rather harshly when we're talking about taking your guns. And remember what Lars said. He said, Kevin, you've got a constitutional right to keep and bear arms, but imagine if Hillary Clinton had become president.
Get it stopped. We're going to stop it through heart and through toughness. It's a combination of through love and through toughness. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to stop. And we're going to be focusing very strongly on mental health, because here's a case of mental health. Part of the problem is we used to have mental institutions, and I said this yesterday. We had a mental institution where you take a sicko like this guy. He was a sick guy, so many signs, and you'd bring him to a mental health institution. Those institutions are largely closed because communities didn't want them. Communities didn't want to spend the money for them. So you don't have any intermediate ground. You can't put him in jail because he hadn't done anything yet, but you know he's going to do something.
Exactly. And the lack of the matter that nobody did anything on this one, right? That deputy who was outside, called the police, and did nothing. We'll talk a little bit about that. One more from the president at KIDO Talk Radio.
We have to harden our schools, not soften them up. A gun-free zone to a killer or somebody that wants to be a killer, that's like going in for the ice cream. That's like, here I am, take me.
Here I am, take me. Very emotional, very relative to what we'll be talking about this morning. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up, we'll go live to CPAC. Rachel Sutherland will join us. And it's interesting. I had a chance to catch up with our old friend Rocky Barker from The Statesman. Had a great talk with Rocky. He was covering the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. We were going back and forth on this. It was interesting to hear about this. And you've got, as Maggie reporting, there's going to be a local march and everything else. And people are talking about that it's, it's going to be this big event. And here's the headline from The Statesman. The students are fed up with the adults. Quote, the adults aren't doing anything, so the students are going to get mad. You've got students from Rocky Mountain High School. They're going to do more than make a stand. Quote, it just triggered something. These folks across the country are going to organize a march on the Capitol March 24th. I believe that's on a Saturday. And thank you, Maria, for letting me know that. However, here's the other thing, and maybe it's because I listen to Sean Hannity and Lars Larson and hear what you have to say every morning on KIDO Talk Radio, but we're missing the other side of the argument. There's always another side of the argument. We can't always say that one side is bad, and condemn it without listening. And that's what we're going to do this morning. But first, we go live to CPAC. Our great friend, Rachel Sutherland, joining us from Fox News Radio with the very latest. Is it the Super Bowl or a Star Wars convention? Good morning, Rachel.
Yeah, it's more like a pep rally atmosphere, carnival-like here at the Conservative Political Action Conference. This is the annual gathering for conservatives. And it's an electric atmosphere as the president is expected here in less than 2 hours to address the gathering. Expect him to talk about issues really important to conservatives. In fact, an administration official has been telling Fox News that the president's going to unveil a new set of sanctions against North Korea, forced to be able to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. We're also expecting him to talk about immigration, perhaps more about gun violence. You know, he held that listening session at the White House yesterday. So a variety of issues expected from the president today here at CPAC.
Of course, also you've got a variety of other conservative issues going on. Is there one big topic, and if that is it the Parkland shooting and the reaction to it, or are there other things that people are talking about?
I would say it's a lot about the Parkland shooting, no doubt about it. Especially yesterday with NRA President Wayne LaPierre, his address, which he talked about arming having more arms in schools. However, we just are learning that the security guard in Parkland apparently did not act in time. And so that really kind of throws some water on the idea of possibly arming teachers. Although, you know, President Trump has said and clarified that, look, we want only people who are really, really trained to have these weapons so that their training kicks in. I wouldn't be surprised if this security official down at Parkland was not a trained Navy SEAL. You know what I mean? Because then that training would just kick in. In a moment like this, none of us really knows how we're going to react.
Right, and again, it's easy to go full throttle when perhaps a lot of folks still may not know all the facts. Of course, that's what makes you so special, Rachel. You get the facts and then you report them. Besides the president, of course, Vice President Pence has been there. You've had other folks. What's the mood at CPAC?
It's exciting. People are in a good mood. I came in this morning way before dawn, and people are already jazzed up with their coffee. There are a bunch of people running in. You would think they were heading to spring break. That's their age, as they were lining up to be able to get in here today. So, yeah, it's really, 8:30 on the East Coast in this room here where the president will be is totally packed, and people are jazzed. So, whereas just a couple of years ago when I was at CPAC, really, then candidate Trump was too controversial to even come here. The world has changed, and now you see a group that is energized, the base really being energized around President Trump.
Well, I guess one person you won't see there is Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama.
You know who else? You know who else you won't see here is Mitt Romney, who's running for Senate out of Utah. In fact, Matt Schlapp told me specifically he's not welcome here until he apologizes for the comments that he made about President Trump during the campaign.
Yeah, indeed. I was going to ask you, is there a concern about possibly losing the House? Has that been talked about?
There is discussion about some of that. Look, oftentimes you'll see some flips in seats whenever a new president comes in. If it's a Republican president, you might see a Democratic wave, and if it's the other way around, you'll see it the other way around. I think that the state's pretty energized, so I don't think they're too worried about the midterm, but we'll see. They're starting things now. I probably should run.
Right. That's not Fergie doing the national anthem. Thanks, Rachel. I don't think if she got that joke. But anyway, Kevin Miller in the morning here. Let's get to our top national story, actually our top local story as well. You've got students saying adults don't do anything, they're going to make it happen. And as I was talking to Lars Larson, it's amazing. It's amazing that we have these kids that can make these statements. I guess that's why they're kids, right? They can make these outrageous statements that they're going to do more to protect kids than the parents and such. Let's see. 10 years ago, I would have done a bit out of this, but I've matured quite a bit. Legislation to protect breastfeeding mothers by exempting breastfeeding from Idaho's indecent exposure and obscenity laws passed the House unanimously yesterday, a big turnaround from 15 years ago when pro-breastfeeding legislation was rejected amid concerns from male legislators that women would be prompted to, quote, whip it out anywhere. Wow. Passed 66-0 with no debate, but no movement on the grocery tax repeal. Okay. I will not listen to my better judgment and go to Liberal Steve on KIDO Talk Radio.
The last law sure sucks. Well, Mr. Miller.
What do you mean by that?
They shouldn't have passed it. We're not talking about that law now. We're talking about the march. I called to talk about the march. There's no theme on the march yet for March 24th. March in March? Is that what it's going to be called? What's the theme behind it?
It's let's go back to Rocky Barker's thing. It's the March to End Violence or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Let's see, quote, I love this, quote, adults aren't doing anything.
Maybe that'll be the theme. Adults aren't doing anything. But even what you said before that,
March for Our Lives.
Chaos.
Yes, it's a march. Chaos. It's March for Our Lives.
There's going to be a march. I want a theme. How can I make money on it beforehand if there's no theme? I'd have a theme, like, March for Miller or something like that.
Well, we had a lunch for Miller, but you weren't there.
As far as I could tell, Miller's had way too many lunches, and he should have skipped that one.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Anyway, you stay fired up and stay out of the mental institute. It was Reagan that busted, trying to bust the unions. He busted up the mental institutions.
You know something?
Reagan then.
I'm just going to not talk until you're going to give me some courtesy here.
Go ahead and talk.
At KIDO Talk Radio, you're right. It was Ronald Reagan that did that. It was Ronald Reagan who decided to close down the mental institutions. And if you talk to anyone in law enforcement, they will tell you the biggest, most prominent mental health institution in the state is the Ada County Jail.
Well, I differ.
That's where we put all the. That's where we put all the mentally ill.
It's the Canyon County Jail.
No, the Ada County Jail, I'm sure, is bigger than that.
Well, yeah, it might be bigger, but we have more mentals than ours.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Anyway, there used to be a difference between a vagrant and a homeless person. What's the difference today? There used to be a law in the books for vagrancy. What's the difference today?
There used to be truancy laws that were enforced, too.
Yeah, what's the difference today? See?
There used to be corporal punishment for callers that were disruptive.
And masses in the Catholic Church used to be in Latin. What's going on with this world? You stay fired up, Miller.
Don't be a stranger. Boy, that was quick draw McGraw. It is 6:44 with Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio.
Officials are not releasing the video because of the criminal investigation that could now lead to charges.
Devastated, sick to my stomach.
Sheriff Scott Israel was horrified by the footage he saw and the witnesses he interviewed. The school's armed officer, Scott Peterson, never engaged 19-year-old gunman Nicholas Cruz during last week's carnage.
What I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in.
Israel says 4 agonizing minutes went by while the deputy waited, and during that time, 17 students, teachers, and coaches were slaughtered. What should have been Officer Peterson's response?
Went in, addressed the killer, killed the killer.
Sheriff Israel is still mortified when he thinks about how the security guard might have stopped the killer quickly.
These families lost their children. We lost coaches. I've been to the funerals. I've been to the homes where they sit and shiver. I've been to the vigils. It's just, there are no words.
Meantime, today the police chief admitted the school's security cameras were oddly on a 20-minute delay. He says that caused confusion during the building search, but would not have saved lives. And the acting FBI director says they're trying to tighten up their procedures in the future after admitting they got 2 warnings about Cruz, but didn't track him down.
There we have it from Channel 6 in Florida. Kevin Miller in the morning here. More coming up. And your thoughts concerning the rhetoric going on about getting rid of guns, getting rid of violence, and yet the FBI, the police, dropped the ball on this one. Look, we love the police. We love the FBI. Too much focus on Russia, not enough focus on stopping real-life crime. You go back to the Air Force, not telling the FBI and the local arms folks, the local arms dealers, the local gun sellers about the guy that committed all those crimes in Vegas. Right? Where's the outrage against them? Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. I might point out that the National Education Association has come out against arming the teachers, and so is our local branch, the IEA. And also I might point out that the gun-free zone is a cherished policy of both the Teachers Union, the AFL-CIO, and the National Education Association. So as far as the propagandization of the students, it's coming from the teachers. Most of the student leadership, the people who are the prominent leaders among your students, are the ones that are most influenced by the teachers and their political philosophy. I mean, you got the same thing historically going back to Russia and the People's Will, where a lot of the leftists that were in the Russian universities in the 1870s were practicing Buchanan. They're the ones that raised the generations of Alexei Uranov, who was Vladimir Lenin's brother. I mean, this is the same thing, and Hillary Clinton in the United States became radicalized during university days. So the point I'm getting at is that the main culprit in this is the education establishment. That's the biggest roadblock to doing anything about securing the schools.
Fair enough, Hank. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Bo in Cuna with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Bo.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call. Just wanted to mention here, with the gentleman, the deputy that resigned down there in Florida, I can't really imagine what the scenario was for him. I can't imagine what it was. He was in there. He was, just why was he hiding? I'm sure I'm not the only one that's thinking about this, so I just wanted to mention it. We have officers. I do back the blue. I love the guys, the men and women in uniform. But here's the thing is that I also have friends that I went to high school with that I have caught up with. They're Marines, and those Marines are the real deal. They're scary. And you put those Marines in there, and they love it. They love the fight. So my question is that do we really want? I mean, I don't know if these men and women that are in the school, they really need to look at themselves, and they really need to be honest. Can they protect our children in the schools? Can they do the job? If they can't, then they need to step aside and get some veterans in there. And I hope I'm not speaking out of place. You know what I'm saying?
I think this guy in Florida was the exception, not the rule. And, as Sean Hannity said, and he went over it yesterday here, you have one point of entry, metal detectors, retired military, and, you start with that, and you harden these schools up.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Besides having marches and having kids scream about the evils of the NRA, what's going on locally? What are the local folks doing?
I love the idea of having, retired veterans in there, of building relationships with these kids, because they're also going to be in there to be able to see who these children are, and the police officers, yes, they can be in there, the deputies and all that, they can be. I just think that we just need to back up and just say, wait, are you guys brave enough? I mean, because I know those Marines are crazy. Okay. And I don't mean that as a derogative, statement, but those guys they love it, man. They love the fight. And, I love those guys. But anyhow, I'll step aside and let someone else take a call. Enjoying the show.
Thank you, Bo. Take care.
Okay.
Coming up, the president on arming teachers and your thoughts. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And we are rolling today. Blessed to be a part of your day. Blessed to be a part of your day.
Your concept and your idea about it's called concealed carry. And it only works where you have people very adept at using firearms, of which you have many.
The president on concealed carry. Let's go to Peyton, the Young Conservatives of Idaho, with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Peyton.
Good morning, Kevin. I just wanted to be really quick. So the last gentleman that I was on, he was wondering if the men and women in blue were brave enough and wanted the retired military to be in there. I'm all for retired vets being in there. I think that there's a lot of different things that we could do with that situation. But I wanted to talk for a second about bravery. Anybody can blindly ignore fear. That's not bravery. Fear's a good thing. It's kept us alive for millennia. It's something that you should embrace. And one of the great ways to judge the character of a man or woman, or what makes a hero really, is someone who embraces fear and doesn't let that stop them and from doing what they believe in their heart is good. And that's what everyone should be doing. Everyone has a responsibility now. Sean Hannity said journalism is dead. It's not dead. Everyone has a responsibility to become a journalist now. And outlets like Kevin Miller on this radio station give you your opportunity to speak and become your own journalist. And I challenge everyone to do that. I think that everyone has a responsibility to do that and a duty. Thanks, Kevin. You have a good one.
Thank you, Peyton. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Traffic and weather.
And it would be teachers and coaches. If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave. Saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had a run. He would have shot, and that would have been the end of it. And this would only be, obviously, for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it would be, it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone. Gun-free zone to a maniac, because they're all cowards. A gun-free zone is let's go in and let's attack, because bullets aren't coming back at us. And if you do this, and a lot of people are talking about it, and it's certainly a point that we'll discuss.
There we have it, the president on concealed carry. We will have much more on that as we move along. By the way, big news at KIDOTalkRadio.com. The Idaho Second Amendment Alliance looking at possibly suing Chairman Tom Lurcher. More information on that at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Coming up, Fox News on the radio. Then we're going to talk about something that really the media doesn't really cover and should cover, the idea of suicide prevention. And we'll talk to a Gold Star mother about what is being done and what should be being done when we're talking about our brave folks in the military. So we will talk about that. We will take your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. As we start the day on the right side, you don't want to miss it. Keep it here. Stay informed. KIDO Talk Radio, home of the KIDO Talk Radio app. Get it now, please. Good morning.